All right. Well, hello and welcome, guys. This is my first reaction video for Toon Tactics TV. Um, this is something that's been on my mind in terms of uh, the news, obviously that's happening a couple of days ago now around the a vote from the Premier League clubs against banning loans against banning loans between associated clubs. And obviously, as a Newcastle fan, this is something that's been very close to our club. It's been one of those clubs that have been really kind of been put at the forefront of this debate, even though we're not the only club. But I think obviously with our owners and everything around them, we've been put in front of it. I think it was the Daily Telegraph who said that this vote was a Newcastle-led rebellion, made it sound like Spartacus or something. But I did, with the banter aside and everything else, I did want to get to the crux of the argument because all this is new to me. I'm not like, as a club, we haven't experienced this sort of attention before in this regard, and I'm not a financial advisor. I'm not an FFP lawyer. I'm not anything like that. I'm just a fan. But I do have eyes to see and ears to listen. And so, just like you guys, I'm trying to get to the crux of it. And I know that obviously other fans, and not just in Newcastle, but like other fans, also have their kind of concerns around, you know, um, clubs like Newcastle, like Man City, like Chelsea, possibly having unfair advantages and sustainability issues and everything like that. And so I'm just reacting to a video from Talksport with Simon Jordan and Jim White, and they do, I think, hit a few points in regards to kind of the crux of the argument itself. And I give my 2 pence worth. Like I said, this is my first time doing it. It's not edited, so I hope no commercials come up on the YouTube. But if you guys have patience, just run with me, see where it's at. Yeah, like as always, your like, share, and subscribe. But like, let me know what your thoughts are and what's your thinking on it. Because I don't want Newcastle to be. I don't want you. I want Newcastle to obviously win the Premier League and dominate, and like every fan wants for their team. But if my bias causes me to not see maybe the potential for cheating or gaining unfair advantages and things like that, then I want to be able to see it. I want to be able to understand it. Although I do have my own views on it, so I'm keen to learn and keen to see what you folks think. Anyway, so I broke the video down into 3 or 4 points. I'll try and in this video, it's a 15-minute video. I'm not going to go for the whole 15 minutes, but I am going to go for some of the key points. So they've introduced I'm going to go out from 2 minutes. They have already introduced the situation itself. Obviously, the Premier League voted against banning loans between different clubs. And they start off, Simon Jordan and Jim White, talking about vested interest. And Jim White described it as turkeys voting for Christmas. The idea being, why would Newcastle and why would Man City? They wouldn't, obviously we know what their agenda is. What they're saying is what they would obviously vote against banning this. So let me just run this clip and let's see where we go from here.
Room that don't have vested interest would have voted against this. The ones that do, Man City are going to vote against it? Of course they're not. Are Chelsea going to vote against it? Of course they're not. Why are Chelsea not going to vote against it? Because half the money that's gone into buying Chelsea is Middle Eastern money that's funded Clear Lake's purchase of, or Clearwater's purchase, or it's called Clearwater, Clear Lake,
yeah,
purchase and through private equity. So all of these guys, Sheffield United, Middle Eastern money. You look at it and go, okay, fantastic, well done. What a wonderful
argument. It creates an unfair advantage.
Of course it does. Well, it creates an opportunity to find your way around challenges like financial fair play.
Right. So the point around that they're making around vested interest is that clubs like they mentioned, Newcastle, Man City, Chelsea, all those that voted for it, they already got a bias. They've already got a vested interest to vote against this. So Jim White kind of why they're talking about it is because Jim White has made the point of, these, they have their own agenda. Essentially, why are they being not as far as why are they being allowed to vote for this? And so and that this essentially taints the vote itself. But I look at it as also, but what's the other side of the argument? So just because, so for instance, Tottenham or Liverpool, Man United to an extent, so just because they're not a multi-club ownerships necessarily, do they not also have a vested interest? Wouldn't their vested is their vested interest necessarily just for the sustainability for clubs? So for instance, is Daniel Levy kind of tossing and turning in his bed at night thinking, I hope Luton Town, are not going to go bankrupt if they get relegated. I hope, that Newcastle are going to be able to compete. No, obviously he wouldn't be. His vested interest is in Tottenham. So my point is, when people talk about vested interest in this and in this conversation, in this episode, the vested interest seems to be saying that they're talking about is, well, Man United, Man City, Newcastle, Chelsea, we know what their vested interest is, and then they won't be wrong. But then the other clubs also have vested interest, and it's not all kind of necessarily for the benefit of all. It's for the benefit of themselves. And so the reason why this vote came, only weeks away from the transfer window, or weeks away from the transfer window, and the timing of it is clear for anyone to see that it was to stop Newcastle from loaning out players. I mean, weeks before, Dan Ashworth, very cleverly, in my view, mentioned the name of Ruben Neves. Not necessarily saying that they're going to buy him, but he just said, yeah, he's a good player, essentially. And everybody jumped on it. And I've said it, I think it was a sleight of hand. I don't necessarily think they're going to go for Ruben Neves, but he just to me, it seemed like almost like a test run. What would happen? How would it look? And obviously, everybody jumped on it, and I think it's why Newcastle was so careful in the transfer window that's just gone in the summer, not to overinvest in Saudi with the clubs involved in the Saudi league. Obviously, we sold ASM, St. Maximin, and everybody was expecting 30 to 40 million, and we sold him for 20, 25 million. Whilst the likes of many players from Liverpool, Henderson and others, Fabinho, getting sold for 30, 40 million, which I'm sure can be justified in some parts, but not every Liverpool fan would say that they, at this stage in their career, despite what they've won, but at this stage in their career, are worth 30, 40 million. So I think in that regard, the Newcastle owners have been quite smart in being reserved in their approach. So my main point, though, is around that vested interest. Why is it only that Newcastle and Man City, who are multi-club ownerships, have this negative thing around vested kind of have an interest in their own clubs? Every other club has an interest in their own club. And it's not necessarily that there is more righteous because they're there kind of for the common good, that, they want everybody to be sustainable. They want everybody to be competing. No, they want their clubs to be competing. And they'll hide behind the idea of the common good for the Premier League in order to compete. At the same time, though, again, it doesn't mean that Newcastle are more right than them, more right than Tottenham, or Tottenham are more right than Newcastle. I'm just trying to say that, let's be kind of even-handed when we're talking about vested interest. So the next point, and this is a salient point, this is an important point around FFP and the other issues around, the implications that this particular vote will have for FFP. And we'll take it away from here from minute 448. I wonder if I hope the adverts don't kick in.
Are buying players that are taking financial fair play problems away from the player that they're buying, the club they're buying him from.
Initially, when they sign him.
So they buy him. So if somebody dumps a financial fair play problem because they've got a £40 million player that's stinking the place out, they want to get rid of him, they take him off their books, they haven't got the cost implications of him, and they capitalise their balance sheet. He then gets loaned back to another Saudi football club. So that facilitates a solution for the first football club in terms of getting around their financial fair play. And back he comes through the door and provides a solution to another Saudi-owned football club. It can't be right for football.
So it's a good point. So essentially, like Simon was saying, was that, look, say like we used ASN. So say, for instance, well, let's not use him because he was already Newcastle player. So say, for instance, Newcastle buy Calvin Phillips, who's the big talk of the town, and they bought him for whatever reason, they bought him for £50 million, and he ends up essentially, like Simon says, stinking out the place. By the next summer transfer window, we need to get rid of him, but nobody wants to buy him. It's been like essentially not for 50 million anyway. People are giving, offering maybe 10, 15 million, 5 million, or whatnot. One way, the theory is that one way Newcastle can get around that is essentially go to Al Hilal, which is a PIF owned club, and say to them, we need you to buy Calvin Phillips for the 50 million that we bought him for, so we can balance our books essentially. And Al Hilal buy him and either keep him or loan him out, whatever they do with him. Newcastle's financial problem is resolved because they get their £50 million back, they get the FFP back on track. The other club, Al Hilal, obviously still, despite Calvin Phillips not doing so well in the Premier League, they still get a decent quality player within their league. And I think what Simon is saying is that that's essentially, like he said, it's not good for the game for Newcastle to do that. And I think there is a point in that. What I will say is, though, apart from the short-term advantage for Newcastle, and I think the owners understand this in terms of, yes, we get to balance our books, we get £50 million back, we also get a quality player into the Saudi league and or whatnot. That is a short-term gain for Newcastle. The long-term negative is that all the other clubs in the Premier League, obviously apart from those that don't have multi-club ownership, are going to be kicking up a fuss about this. The Premier League is going to be under pressure again. And also the media and everybody else are going to be talking about Newcastle selling, essentially fading players, dud players, and making money on them and just having this unfair advantage or whatnot. So the game that we're playing essentially is ruined. And Newcastle have this negative light on them. So this continues and rules and people so there isn't a positive light on Newcastle or their ownership, and it's unnecessary pressure on their club. You can imagine that every press conference that Eddie Howe's going in now, you're going to have national media around this saying, how can you sell, this ex-failed player for this much money? Don't you think this affects the game? This and that's a constant thing. And whenever Newcastle win a trophy or win games or whatnot, it's just always good. There's always going to be this asterisk alongside of, but we all know that they got unfair advantage. So I understand the fear and I understand the concerns around Newcastle having this particular advantage over other clubs, but I also see the other argument in terms of the long-term net negative for me when it comes to it. Plus, and again, the owners have been playing this well. The last summer, Newcastle sold one player to the Saudi league. Chelsea, Liverpool, everybody else has benefited from selling their players into the Saudi league, and so they've been wise, I think, or they've been clever, if you want to put it another way, in essentially sharing the wealth with other clubs. Now, that might not sit well with everybody. However, it is one way to balance the situation, because the other way, in terms of if you ban loans between multi-club ownership, and I think Simon talks about this later on, the argument that Newcastle and Man City will have, they'll just take it to court and say this is unfair. This is breaching, trading standards and things like that, and the freedom of trade and things like that. So the Premier League have got to balance that out, and something like what Newcastle have done in the previous transfer window, even though it isn't ideal, isn't perfect. I'm not saying that it is. I'm not saying this is the solution. And Newcastle will forever be buying, PIF-owned clubs will forever be buying these players from other clubs just to keep them quiet and keep them okay. That's not the ideal situation. But it is something that is obviously the owners have been smart enough. Plus, there's Newcastle only have so many sellable assets, but I think the concern is once things go on. So it's an open question. It's an open answer. They haven't got all the solutions for it, but I think again, and I'm not seeking solutions. I'm kind of opening the argument or the conversation in around that. The final thing I wanted to go into was. Two more actually, and this is the part where I think myself as a Newcastle fan have a bit of gripe. So we'll take it on from here.
But that is the majority. The majority would be 13, wouldn't it? Still.
So I think just to lead up to that, I think Jim White poses the question of essentially he's trying to find a way around the vote. So why did we allow the vote to happen this way? Couldn't we have got another outcome?
The point is that
no, you could have a different outcome.
You can have
it doesn't need to be 13. 14 seems too high a quorum.
But that is the structure that's been put in place for some significant period of time because you've got six typically big clubs that if they vote the way they want, then all they need is one more. It's incumbent because we tend to have these discussions that are driven by the big six clubs wanting to do something, which may not necessarily be for the better interests of the other 14 clubs. So if you've already got six in the bag, right, as a six clubs that are already looking for something.
And I like the answer that Simon has given, because Jim was saying essentially, why are we, he wanted to put the vote he wanted the FIFA to sort it out rather than the Premier League. And Sam was making the point that this is a Premier League issue, not a FIFA issue. And Jim wanted it to be a FIFA issue because he believed that the vote would be different. If you let FIFA deal with it, it would be taken out of the hands of clubs like Newcastle, and we wouldn't have this result. We'd have the result that we essentially want, which is unfair. And Simon points out this is the whole problem that we've gone from having 6 or 7 majority vote to 14 to stop this situation where the top 6 clubs essentially rule the footballing governance through their voting by balancing things out this way. So no, you don't want a situation where FIFA takes over or you change the way the vote is done in terms of let it be just the majority, whoever wins, because you then again raise the issue around accountability. And I kind of applaud Simon for that, because this is why the clubs outside the top 6 or the fans and others refer to the top 6 at times as the cartel, because the perception from the outside is when you have this thing around you it's all about your agenda, your interests, and around you guys keeping yourself at the top and keeping us at the bottom. And so it's important that even though no process, no voting system, no governance is going to be perfect, but it has to continue moving on and developing, and it has to be accountable, and it has to be at least perceived as fair. And fairness has got to be especially in the voting, in the way clubs vote and the Premier League is governed, it has to be seen as fair. So I do applaud Simon for that. The final point, and this is getting to the precise problem around FFP. We'll go to 11 minutes 30. And if you guys have been hanging on with me up to this point, well done to you. Thank you. And it was great to have you so far on this journey. We're getting to the last part now.
But we're trying to simplify it for laymen.
So what happens next is some Saudi-owned football club in England, or whatever Middle Eastern country it is, whatever country it's from, right, wants to decide that they buy an XYZ player from XYZ club for a huge amount of money because it helps XYZ club in the Premier League get past some financial fair play, and then loan him back to him.
But is this not what's been going on at all?
Second,
has it gone on at all of any level?
No, but we're only beginning to see now the absolute motivation of what's happening in certain parts of the world and the challenges that could happen to the understanding. What I've said all along.
So that's the crux of the problem. Again, going back to the earlier issue around the FFPs, what if Newcastle sell a play, sell a dud player onto the Saudi league to clear their books, and they get unfair advantage where they get to clear their own books, they get to move the player onto somewhere else because they own that particular club, and not only advantage, but it's a way around FFP. It's circumventing what the FFP is for. And again, as I've said, the point is around for the Newcastle club and for us as a club and for the owners is that the advantage is very short term, and the long term implications is that everybody are just going to say we're cheats. Every time we win, everything we go on to do will have a big asterisk on it. The other thing is that I'll say is I think I definitely agree with. The other thing is what people also think about is if FFP, and I believe this is to be true, obviously was first created and designed to help to prevent, but also avoid and to help with sustainability. Because when we didn't have FFP, we had various types of owners coming in, taking over clubs like Portsmouth, Blackburn, and then losing interest or running out of money or just some criminal activity going on, and those clubs are left in the dust, and they just never recover from that. And I think that was the right reason to have FFP, to protect and to preserve those clubs, so sustainability. So if the main reason for FFP to be created is for sustainability, clearly what Newcastle are doing, although is circumventing FFP by selling to other clubs, but the outcome is to remain within the books and to remain sustainable. The problem is with the method. So the idea of the ends justify the means. So Newcastle sell a player, it's done in a way that isn't necessarily that's circumventing FFP, but the ends is that Newcastle remain a sustainable club, and there's no issues around that. But there's, rather than banning the loaning of clubs, the loaning of players between these clubs, is there no other better solutions, alternatives? One of the best ones I've heard so far was from Terry from the Football Terrace, where he talked about essentially, and it's kind of off the cuff, but I thought it was really a smart idea around creating like mutual funds, essentially. So if big clubs, if you buy players or whatnot for £50 million, you also put £50 million in a mutual fund. So if for whatever reason that the owner goes bankrupt or leaves or whatnot, that money that was spent for the transfers, that £50 million, £100 million, whatever it turns out to be, goes back into the club. So no matter what happens to the owner, there's still money for that club. And I think, I haven't thought through, the advantages, disadvantages. Is it even possible? Is it feasible? I don't know. Again, I'm not a financial expert, but why is there not more people bringing around solutions around that? Because if the whole idea is to have sustainability, this is why this law was created. Why are different alternative ideas that help bring about sustainability not being put to the fore? Why is it, we have to ban this, we have to ban that? And that kind of leads me to the final point around what a lot of other fans have been seeing on Twitter, saying around it gives Newcastle, it gives Man City, it gives others an unfair advantage because they can go and buy buy Kylian Mbappe and or buy these other, not even selling Ruben Neves, so they can buy Ruben, or they can loan back Ruben Neves from a club that is owned by their owners. And the simple solution is, if you're Man United, Arsenal, and Man United have done this before, they've had affiliated clubs before. What's stopping your owners from creating those partnerships themselves? They don't even necessarily have to buy other clubs. They can forge those partnerships, those with other clubs as well. Newcastle are doing it with clubs in Ireland. They've got I forgot the term, but it was a partnership. It was an agreement around them and in terms of players and things like that. And so what's stopping your club from doing that? And they've done that before with, I think it was not Anderlecht. Was it Anderlecht? Man United fans can confirm. You can have that, or you can own clubs. You can do what Chelsea are doing, buy Strasbourg or whatnot, and do those type of things, as long as it is in the law. So why, because then at least the benefit is that you can loan your players out to them. They can get their experience. They can loan their players to you. Or you can buy players. You can develop them. The idea is we should all be competing, but I think you should be questioning. Okay, now obviously this vote has passed. Rather than focusing, in my view, in terms of the focus being on, and you can focus on who you want, but focusing on Newcastle or Man City isn't making your clubs better, and it isn't why aren't your owners essentially okay? Now the voters to ban loans isn't going to happen. Therefore, why don't we then go try and succeed in multi-club ownerships? Why don't we forge relationships in the Ivory Coast in Africa, or in Brazil and South America, or in Asia and stuff like that? Why are they doing that? You guys are massive clubs. Your name is incredible. I think even Arsenal at one point, and Arsenal fans can correct me if I'm wrong, wasn't Vieira trying to do something in his home country, building an academy? I think Mane is doing something now as well, but I don't think it's Liverpool. Are Liverpool working with him? I'm sure it's another club that's working with him in his academy. Why aren't Liverpool on top of that? He's at least, if he's not a legend, he's right close to being a legend for you guys. Why would that connection not be made? And your clubs and your owners can do the same. Anyway, that's just my kind of thoughts on it. I haven't got like a concrete answer or solution. I'm not trying to win an argument necessarily. I'm just trying to see a way forward with this and to grow the conversation from, your club is cheating, or your club is this, or your club is that, to now, okay, how can evolve the conversation in terms of what is FFP, what can our clubs do, and how can we continue to compete at the highest level, not just on the pitch, but financially, player recruitment, all that, but still do it in a fair way. So yeah, that's just my thoughts. I probably ran way over time, and thanks to anybody who's gone this far. This is my first time. I hope to do a lot more, a lot shorter for folks. But thank you again for hanging in there with me. Like and subscribe, share, and until next time, take care and God bless, guys. Take care now.